Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Now, I don't know if you know, but there is currently a certain hockey romance taking the world by storm, with everyone giving their thoughts on it, and I want to be basic and do the same, in all honesty. So, I am here today to talk about my thoughts on Heated Rivalry, specifically the book. And if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and subscribe. Thank you! Now, let's go over some housekeeping to discuss what this video is and isn't so that we are all on the same page. This video is just me giving my thoughts on the book Heated Rivalry because I was originally just going to include it in a wrap-up video, but I've had so many long-winded rants about this book in the shower that I know it just needs to be its own video. I am not discussing the TV show or any of the other books in the Game Changer series because I have not read or watched anything else in this universe. And that is very intentional because while I do intend to read the other books and I am dying to watch the show, I knew I wanted to make this video and I didn't want any outside influences to cloud my opinions before I got this video recorded. That is to say that if any of the things I may have criticisms about are addressed in the other books or changed in the show, I do not know about it, nor do I want any spoilers, just saying. Most of these books are meant to be written in a way where you can read them as standalones anyway, so I am treating this one as such for this video. Just putting all of that out there so that if I say something disliked, then hopefully I won't get too many people being like, well, actually, if you read the others, or, well, in the show, they changed this. Also, this video is really a two-in-one. It's half a book review and half a discussion on the messy fandom discussions around stories like this. Also, if you're wondering why I am not showing my face in this video like I usually do anymore, it's simply because there's aspects of this where I want to get the wording down as precisely as I can, and don't want to keep glancing down at my notes, trying to remember how I wanted to say something and fumbling, and then having to redo the take again and again and again. So I am fully scripting this video, and know with that I'd have a very boring face cam where I'm not looking at the camera most of the time, so instead you get footage of me playing Marvel Rivals very, very badly. Yes, I know that I'm very bad. Anyway. Besides, I am someone who prefers to listen to videos while doing other things and typically make my videos for that audience anyway, so yeah. Also, one last thing before we officially get started. If I sound kind of congested or anything, I am getting over a cold, so yeah, I am still very snotty and congested and all that lovely stuff. So if I sound a little off, that's why. I'm getting over a cold. Anyway, let's start getting into the real meat of this video. We are here to talk about Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. This is an adult sports romance book about these two professional hockey players, Shane and Ilya, that publicly have a very, well, heated rivalry, but behind closed doors are hooking up in secret and slowly falling for each other over the course of their careers. I'm not going into an entire summary of the novel. If you've made it over to my tiny channel, I assume you already know what happens in the plot and have watched so many videos about this topic that YouTube is just recommending anyone and everyone to you now. So, yeah. So, overall thoughts. I'm giving it a 3.7 out of 5 stars because I have a lot of complicated feelings about this novel. There were times when I was either, kind of bored or frustrated with the story, but there were other times where I was incredibly invested and head over heels in love with the story. And that's why I wanted to make this video, honestly. Also, I don't know where else to put this, so I'm putting it right here. I do wish there had been more hockey. There's just not much actual hockey in this book. Listen, I'm not a sports fan, but if I'm reading a hockey romance book, I do want to see the hockey. If I didn't want to see the hockey, I would just pick up some other romance, so I do wish that there was a little bit more hockey in this one. I'm just saying. I don't know if the other ones have more hockey in them. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I do wish that there was a little bit more hockey in this one. Now, this book is broken up into 4 distinct parts, with the first half taking place in the past and the second half showcasing present day. Part 1 is about Shane and Ilya's first year being professional athletes and how their career, and secret hookups, began. Part 2 is really about showing just how in the spotlight these two are and how that makes keeping their secret arrangement more difficult as the years go on. Part 3 shows how Shane and Ilya have become used to the way things are over the years, but still not having actually figured themselves or their feelings out for each other just yet. And Part 4 is about them finally embracing their love fully and giving them, and the audience, a taste of what their life together could be like if they didn't have the very public rivalry thing to deal with. I say all of this because the first half of the novel is what really drove me nuts while I was reading, but the second half is what really hooked me and low-key made this my current hyperfixation. So let's get into that. Here's where we get into my first controversial take, because while I was reading parts 1 and 2, I was honestly just really bored after a while because the chapters were just a continuous cycle of sex scene, scene to push us into another hookup scene, sex scene, scene to push us into another hookup, repeat. And it's just kind of like, yeah. And while the world and sidecast does feel pretty flat all throughout the book, Shane and Ilya in part 1 and 2 were also frustrating because it felt like there was just no progression with either of them being made. They hate each other, yet they're attracted to each other. Shane has internal homophobia and keeps telling himself that it's just a phase and he'll grow out of it, but can't deny how good Ilya feels inside of him. Ilya sees it as a convenient arrangement to get his rocks off with a guy that won't expose him as bi to the NHL and mess up his career, but there's also something just so alluring about Shane. On and on, it feels like they just start and stay this way during the first half of the book with very little progression either in their individual arcs or in coming together until the very end of part 2 when they're at the Olympics in Russia. Then part 3 kicked in, and I woke up, okay? The narrative's pacing up till then felt very fast, showing us snapshots of the early days of these guys' careers and situationship with long time jumps. But now, part 3 and 4, we are in the present day. The pacing slows down to allow us more into their world. Rather than everything taking place on a game night or a career milestone night, we get more scenes off the ice where they're just living their normal outside lives. Well, as normal as you can be, as a very famous rich 20-something-year-old who plays in professional sports for a living. But more importantly, this is the time when we finally slow down and start getting a deeper look at the emotional thoughts and feelings that these dudes are having and see them start to actually progress. We see Shane finally come to terms with his sexuality and then slowly become more and more comfortable with the fact that he's gay. We see Ilya's stony persona finally break down and get to see the kind of soft, caring, considerate person that he is, and the romantic tension finally starts getting interesting as they are both realizing that after all of these years they've finally fallen for each other. But they're both scared to admit it because they don't know if things have changed for the other man or if it's still just a convenient fuck for him. Not to mention that they're both scared to try and fight for this relationship, given the potential monumental career downfall if they were found out. The sidecast is still extremely underdeveloped, especially Hayden, oh my god, but finally seeing the walls of the leads come down and show their vulnerabilities in this section makes up for it. Part 4 is kind of interesting for me. At the end of the third part, another famous hockey player publicly comes out and the news is well received. Well, at least this novel frames it as such. Like I said, when I wrote this script, I hadn't read Scott and Kip's book yet or any of the others. And this act of bravery inspires both Shane and Ilya to finally give their love a true chance because, just maybe, things won't be so doom and gloom if they are discovered. This final part really centers around giving both the audience and the characters a glimpse at what domestic life could look like for them if they finally made the leap. It's very cute, very sweet. I like their playful banter here a lot, how they read each other so well at this point and respond with care and affection when the other is clearly upset by something, and how they both seem to light up with so much warmth for the rest of the novel after admitting that they love each other so much. The ending did, however, fall a bit flat for me, though. I won't lie. The climax is Shane's parents finding out about them, and the two guys finally coming clean to someone about everything between them and how long things have been going on. It goes well after the initial shock of learning that two rivals who are famous for supposedly hating each other are actually deeply in love, and it's a fine scene, but it falls flat for me because Shane coming out to his parents was never a major part of his character arc. Most of the brief moments and appearances they have up till now just state that they support his hockey career and nothing else. There's one or two moments in the later half where he thinks about how to come out to them and how they'll react to his boyfriend being Ilya of all people, but it's never a major thing, and even he says he's not really worried about being accepted by them so much as Ilya being accepted by them, honestly. So there's really no tension during the climax, in my opinion. The other reason that the ending fell flat for me is because the overarching tension of this novel has always been the possibility of the world finding out that the two best players are gay and bi, and in a relationship, and what would happen if that did occur. Quite honestly, I was expecting the leads to at some point wake up one morning and see on the news that they had been found out because some paparazzi or passing hiker happened to take a photo of them together at the cottage. But that just never happens. They never get found out in this book. I assume it happens in their next book, The Long Game, but I really feel it was a missed opportunity to not have them be discovered at the end of this one, and either leave the audience on that massive cliffhanger or show us that the fans are fine with it. It's a romance. You have to have a happy ending for the genre. Like, come on. But just having them strategize about how to get the public used to the idea of them being friends over time so that one day in the distant future they can come out around the time that they feel like retiring, that just doesn't hit the same in my opinion. It kind of makes all the tension that the book built up just kind of fizzle out, in all honesty. And the epilogue where Shane lets us know that he came out to his team and told Hayden about Ilya off-page was not really it for me either. That's a major moment. I would have wanted to see the scene where he comes out as gay to his team and how they initially react to that news, since so much of Shane's internal conflict was about how he was scared of the reaction from the league and his team. But there are plenty of moments throughout the novel where a scene just cuts off early and then we're told how things went down at a later time, where I was just like, I kind of wanted to see that moment. I kind of did. Like, for example, the Olympics. I wanted to see how things went for the Olympics in the final game that Shane played. Like, I know later on it stated that like, he lost or something, but, like, I wanted to see the actual scene of him losing at the Olympics. Like, there were just quite a few moments in the novel where I was just like, I wanted to see that scene. I didn't want to hear about it. I wanted to actually see it. Anyway, you can see what I mean when I said that there were times I was frustrated by the creative choices made and other times where I had hearts in my eyes at what was happening. But as you can see from the runtime, we are not done yet. There's a couple other things I want to discuss about this book, and then I will release you. Okay, so it's a very smutty book, so of course we have to touch on that topic briefly, but I do have an actual point to say here, and I won't get detailed. Now, first off, did the sex scenes ever get me rock solid? No, but they were fine if repetitive at times, again, especially in the first half of the novel. What I actually wanted to say on them is that I find it interesting how they very, very subtly show the progression of Shane and Ilya's relationship. The first few sex scenes are very hesitant and cautious, much like the guys are about each other, but as they get more comfortable with each other as time goes on, the activities that they do become more varied and exploratory, and once they are fully committed to each other, these smut scenes often depict them prioritizing making the other feel good rather than focusing on getting their own rocks off. I'm not sure if this is done intentionally or not, but it is something that I found very interesting when thinking back on this novel, and I just wanted to make note of it because it is a nice detail. I really did like that very subtle detail. Now, the next thing that we will be discussing is actually low-key 2 points made into one, but I feel like that they are so intertwined with each other that I can't really separate them easily. And also, this is one of the main reasons that I wanted to make this video. and that is the topic of gay stories that get labeled as targeted at straight women and queer people's relationships in those fandoms. I will be using reactions to the show a bit more to make my point here, but it's the same story, so I don't really feel like that's an issue. Now, something that I've seen a lot online is people debating whether or not Heated Rivalry is aimed at a straight audience or not, and if so, how does that affect the relationship that actual queer people have with the story? A common statement I've seen pop up in the last few weeks is some variation of saying its target audience is straight women, so queer people should pay no mind to it whatsoever and just treat it as another story fetishizing gay men. I personally disagree that this is a fetish story, but do agree that this book is at least in part aimed at straight women. I say that because the protagonists are both traditionally masculine men that can pass as straight aside from the fact that they are into each other, and that's typically what characterizes this subsection of LGBT plus fiction. But the thing is, does that really matter? Is it really a bad thing? Some men have been making the assumption that because the fandom is dominated by women, that they must automatically be fetishizing gay men. While I do think some women are like that, as there's weirdos in every fandom, particularly the ones currently harassing the only opening queer actor of the show over their ridiculous fantasies of the leads actually being together in real life. But overall, I don't think men who make this complaint have actually taken the time to listen to why most women love this story and these characters. And also, they assume no queer women or queer men like this story, which just isn't the case whatsoever. Like, you can go on Reddit and see, like, tons and tons of queer people, and also on Twitter too, tons and tons of queer people loving the story. If you actually look at the reviews and fandom spaces where people discuss why they love this story, majority of women fans say that they love it because of the emotional vulnerability that Shane and Ilya display, and how sweet and caring with each other they are as their tale progresses. And I also don't believe the author is fetishizing queer men in the book itself either, because of that deep emotional connection that is formed in the later half of the novel. In all honesty, if I had DNF'd the novel at the halfway point for whatever reason, maybe I would have agreed with people who make this assumption. But if you actually finish the story, it's clear the woman's fantasy presented here isn't, ooh, two hot dudes doing gay shit for my entertainment, but rather, ooh, men that are honest about their feelings and care about their partner's happiness and pleasure? Oh my god, what a concept. I love this. If anything, we should instead be calling on straight men to be better so straight women don't feel the need to resort to romance books to find emotionally mature men. Though, on that note, straight ladies, I will say y'all should give the bi men a chance instead of just automatically writing them off a lot of times. But that's a whole other topic. A rebuttal to this argument might be to wonder then why straight women don't just read straight novels. Well, two things on that. One, your sexuality does not determine what kind of romance novels you're allowed to read. My preferred romance stories are Achillean, yes, but I also read sapphic and straight books because I like the stories and characters even though I'm not into women. Now, caveat, if you only ever consume men-loving men books and never give sapphic books a chance and or the only men-loving men books you read are authored by straight women, and you never pay books written by queer authors any mind, then in that case we can start asking as to why that choice is made. But by and large, simply reading an interesting story about a relationship different than the kind that you want does not automatically mean you're fetishizing anyone. And also, two, have y'all heard what goes on in some of these super popular straight books? Oh my god, a lot of those fictional men are just as gross as real men, with manipulation, abuse, being closed off in every way, the whole nine yards. It's no wonder why some women turn to gay books to see what emotionally mature men could look like, cause it's hard to find straight men like that, either real or fictional. Like, ugh. And also, if nothing else, it's romance. The romance genre is typically dominated by women both as creators and fans. Get over it. And fandom spaces have historically been shaped by women. Truly, if we relied exclusively on men to generate fandom hype for anything, even gay shit, we would have no fandoms to speak of. So, some of y'all men need to, like, shut the fuck up on trying to kick the women out of here. Like, no, they're gonna stay here, and they are allowed to stay here. Like, shut the fuck up. Anyway, moving on to the second half of this whole messy ass point, on the comments about this not really being a real queer story, but instead a women's fetish story, because the leads are traditionally masculine and not stereotypically queer. I find this thought pattern especially ridiculous. Queer men come in all shapes and sizes. We're not a monolith. Just because I might be a feminine twink doesn't mean that every gay dude in existence is the same way, nor should every gay character in media be represented in the same way. Many queer men are traditionally masculine, that's just their style, and they deserve to have good representation in shows and books as well. And to claim that Heated Rivalry shouldn't be accepted into queer spaces because its main characters are essentially straight passing, for lack of a better word, is an insult to the gay and bi men that do associate heavily with masculinity. Stories like this and men like Shane and Ilya do exist, and this is evident by the response to the show and the book and the story overall from many queer men. I've seen countless comments by men saying that they love this story because they can relate to the characters' struggles to be themselves because they have jobs or hobbies that exist in spaces where people would automatically question their masculinity if they were outed. I'll be honest and say that while reading this book, one thing that bothered me was how Shane's internal homophobia was done. Not because it was a bad character arc or anything, but simply because I could not understand his mindset of the desire to keep his masculinity in check and feeling that he needed to reject his queerness because it made him less of a man somehow. I made a TikTok and originally wrote a section of this video talking about it, and by the end of writing that portion of the script, I realized that it's not the book's fault that section didn't connect with me. It's my problem that that character arc didn't connect with me. Because masculinity has never been a priority for me. I've always been feminine ever since I was a kid, even when it would get me weird looks by the adults in my life. And my internalized homophobia was because of religious fear, never because of masculinity, because, again, I don't desire to be associated with masculinity. But just because that's my truth doesn't make that every gay guy's truth. And the queer men that I've seen who do associate with masculinity have said that Shane's internal struggle felt very relatable and realistic to them. And on top of that, this story has been a positive force of representation in other ways too. One of the leads of the show said that he's been getting messages from closeted professional athletes saying that they felt seen for the first time in mainstream media. And over the past few weeks, I've seen stories about other professional athletes who are like coming forward nowadays because this story has made them feel seen and brave enough to do so. Or former professional athletes talking about how much they love the show because it made them feel so seen and it felt so relatable to them and they could just connect with the characters because they know exactly what they were going through and they have been in their situations before. And it's been reported that the show has become an underground safe space in Russia with many queer men. They're saying that they find Ilya and his circumstances with being a queer Russian extremely relatable. That real world impact is incredible and enough to give Heated Rivalry merit as an authentic queer story, both the book and the show. Just because the characters don't look or act like stereotypical twinks, jocks, or bears, and they don't listen to the main pop girls or yell, "Yes, Diva Slay!" doesn't make this a non-queer story, because many queer men don't fit the expected image of queerness, but their queerness is still 100% valid, and they deserve to be represented positively in media too. Just because you or I can't see ourselves in these characters doesn't mean that's true for everyone, and the people who can see themselves in Shane and Ilya deserve to have their experiences represented and normalized too. So, with all that being said, again, the whole point of people saying, like, oh, this is not a real queer story, it's just a gay fiction story for straight women, I find that so ridiculous because no, okay, yeah, some straight women do love this show and this book and this series, whatever, but it's also been so connecting and so heartening for so many real queer people, both queer men, queer women, I'm sure. So, with that in mind, the story really does deserve to have a positive place in queer spaces, instead of just being automatically written out because the author is straight or some of the fans are straight or whatever. Like, no, this story does connect with a lot of queer people. So, it does deserve to have a positive place in our communities. Anyway, I think that's all my thoughts at this time surrounding Heated Rivalry the book. I'm gonna go watch the show now because I am absolutely dying to see it and I can't wait any longer. If you like this video, then please give it a like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. I'll talk to you next time. Bye! Okay, Aftermath, I will say, time for me to be a little bit honest here. I will say, while I did script this video before I had read any of the other books or started the show, as of the recording of this video, when I'm actually freaking recording this video, I have read Game Changer and I do love it. And yeah, I do want to read the other stories. And also, I have watched the first two episodes of the show. So yeah. And also on the show specifically, like I said, I am only on episode two, but I will say so far it does feel like a really faithful adaptation with some subtle changes that kind of address the things that I really had a problem with the book, especially the side characters like Svetlana or Shane's parents or whatever, not really, being really developed all that well. Hayden's still very much underdeveloped, at least as of right now. I don't know if he gets more developed as the series goes on. But like in the first two episodes alone, a lot of the side characters really do get a lot more time to shine. So I really do like that. And there's also just more hockey. Okay, like I said, I wanted more hockey, and there is more hockey in the show. So at least a little bit. So yeah, so far it does feel like a very faithful adaptation, and I'm liking it, and I'm also liking some of the subtle changes that they made to kind of improve it in some areas. So I will just say that. I want to continue on with the show and read the other books though. I will say that because I really do like this series. It's quite fun for me. Anyway, bye.